What up, everybody? How are you? I'm excited to be premiering a new visual from the Second Line album. And not only that, the album is about animation, it's about post apocalyptic times, it's about sci fi, it's about celebrating Black animators, Black content creators. And one of my favorite artists that I work with was this artist called Buttercup, who I work with through Adult Swim. And I was so enamored by their work that I asked them to animate my new visual Voodoo intermission, which to me is one of my favorite interludes off the record. So without further ado, I want to introduce you guys to Buttercup. Buttercup!
Hey, hey, hi, hello.
Live and in full color right now. You are on Everybody Needs Buttercup, the coolest animator I've ever met in my life, but also one of the coolest content creators. And I say that because it's your style, Buttercup. It's the way in which you animate and design. And before we get into Voodoo, which sick, before we give them the premiere, the exclusive, before we give them that, the choo choo, before we give them that, um, I think it's important to just introduce people to you and also why I chose you for this project and your ideas, because this wasn't just me saying, being a tyrant and telling you what I wanted. This was more
Sure.
about, me, collaborating with you and saying, yo, the way you design, what you hear when you hear this record, what is, how do we put our minds together? So, first of all, who are you, Buttercup? Introduce yourself to the world, and why people should be looking at you not just for Voodoo, but with your
Mm.
work.
Hey, hi, I'm Buttercup. I'm an Afro-Indigenous animator, sequential artist, illustrator. I love anime. And I am a huge advocate for Black and Indigenous representation in all forms of media, but specifically in animation and in sequential art and in like high tech spaces specifically. And like I'm Afrofuturist basically at my core, and I'm really interested in like seeing people who look like me, who think like me, in spaces that they've never had the opportunity to interface with because of trauma, because of all the oppression, all different reasons. And so I'm currently in the process of working on a comic called spelled UM, and it's a Black magical girl comic about birth work and like cosmic entities. It's got some like eldritch horror, but also eldritch euphoria. um, it's got all kinds of cool stuff. It's a cosmic comic, and like it's an avenue for me to express this passion that I have for like seeing me and my people thriving in the future.
So while you're saying that, first of all, you guys get into that, but what I heard, right, and what I've noticed about you that just moves me is your choice to depict women in your animation,
Hmm.
the way in which you view them and see them and draw them. Because when we did our collaboration for Adult Swim, what just drew me to you was the old woman and how she was manifested with magic and just like
Hmm.
how she enveloped in this beautiful scene. If you guys haven't seen the short, you need to go see it. It is so detailed for 25 seconds. I was just like blown away by and just even the choice of music, like just you understood the assignment and
Yeah,
knew what you wanted, and I loved it.
immediately.
Um, and I hear again why I picked you is again you're saying with as well. You're picking these powerful women, these beautiful creatures. Why are you choosing women with your design? Is that a specific thing?
I mean, I could just come out right and say I'm a Black femme supremacist. I'm an Indigenous femme supremacist. That's not necessarily 100% the truth, but like I think that there is just an entire, the word I was going to use is lacuna, which means like a void, an empty space. There's like a lot missing in the context of being able to show a holistic lens into the Black femme experience. And like that's not exclusively uh, um, uh, uh, with regard to Black femmes, but also Black non-binary people, Black trans feminine people, Black transmasculine people. And so like there's a whole spectrum of experiences, daily lived experiences that aren't very well represented in the media, and that are slowly becoming more and more well represented in the
Right.
media. But that like at the time that I started working on which it's been like 7 years now, 7 years ago,
No,
nothing.
that,
Like
you
the
got it.
show Pose wasn't out, there was nothing.
You're absolutely right, and I think that's again what attracted me to you is that I think that I didn't see myself. I grew up loving anime too. I grew up wanting to
Mhm,
be a part of the creative experience where I'm surrounded by people that look like me and also design people that look like me. And I find like there's a lack just not even when in the characters, but also in the boardrooms, down to the production,
mhm,
to the animation, uh to the coding, just the entire structure of the software. It's just there's a lack of representation in all those places. So when I see someone like you, I see a gem. And I think it's really important for people to like see that it exists, see that you're purposeful and there's intention with your work as well, which I think makes it even more beautiful. Which brings me to
mhm.
why I said, "Can you please save me and do this animation?" Um, I knew that I wanted to do an animated interlude for Voodoo. I knew that I wanted that because I had done King Creole, which was my trailer for the beginning of my album. And I love
Which
Voodoo
is
because
awesome.
I think that it's one of my favorite interludes because I feel like it's almost as if I could see King Creole preaching, saying this is
Hmm.
an origin story. Like, I'm trying to give you guys keep wanting mediocre, you keep wanting average when we want to give you so much more than that. And it speaks to
Hmm.
the Black agenda, right? This idea that we've for so long had to be 10 times more, 20 times more, right? We're taught that just in nature that we have to go this much harder. And everyone's okay with being like the basic when we're like striving for excellence at everything
Right. Constant.
constant. And so that was kind of what this was. And I thought it'd be really cool that New Orleans be represented in animation because when we talked, I told you when I see New Orleans, they always the only like really visuals in animation that we see New Orleans is the Princess and the Frog. It's very cartoony,
Hmm.
very like, or it's this kind of old school heritage, like French colonial, which is fine. That is a part of. I'm from there. I get that. But I was
Right.
like, I want to see Blade Runner New Orleans. I want to see
Hmm.
Running Man New Orleans. I want to see Mad Max New Orleans. And that was why I came to you about how do we put African Afrofuturism against the New Orleans stage and make it happen. And you looked at me and was like, gotcha, and
Yeah.
and this was born. So my question to you is, did I throw you for a loop when I mentioned having certain aspects of New Orleans a part of it? Have you ever been to New Orleans?
Oh, I've been to New Orleans. Yeah, I actually went to go and help rebuild after Hurricane Katrina. I
Wow.
was helping to rebuild the community down in the Ninth Ward, and we helped rebuild the church down there. And actually, my family, there's a huge part of my family is from New Orleans. My mom was actually born in New Orleans.
I never knew. Like, I didn't even. You didn't even say anything, so I didn't even know that. Because when I gave you news for me, now, I know
Uh-huh.
that because I love St. Louis Cathedral is a huge staple for me growing up. Like, I love that church. I grew up Catholic, so I don't believe in some of the practices of Catholicism at all
Hmm.
anymore. Um, I do understand that what I grew up in New Orleans, there is a huge number of Black Catholics. It's a huge thing. St. Louis Cathedral is.
Hmm.
So when we were drawing and talking about doing a post-apocalyptic, having Creole basically in front of St. Louis Cathedral as an android, singing about this, I thought it would be cool to play off the fact that if you go to New Orleans, in front of St. Louis Cathedral, there are tarot card readers, magic,
Hmm.
Wiccan. They're like they don't let them move. There is a huge dynamic between paganism and magic in front of Catholicism. I thought that was interesting because in New Orleans you can be many and multiple things literally right next to each other.
Right.
No one cares. You just kind of sit in that space and it works. And since I've lived in New Orleans, since a kid all the way up now, I never really thought about it. It just was natural that there's magic. Everything
Yeah.
that is parallel or like that totally discredits what Catholicism really is.
Hmm.
It's like right in front of it. And I thought it'd be cool to kind of play off of the sci-fi culture in front of have an android preaching about
Hmm.
being more in Afrofuturism in front of a Catholic church. Like, I thought that could be
Hmm.
cool. you took it to a whole nother level by adding some of the my
Mm.
Haitian symbols, because my father is Haitian, a part of that culture in it. What I want to do is bring out some of the sketches that you draw and really talk to you about where these are, what I gave you, and then how did you manifest this from what we talked about. So,
Mm.
guys, I'm about to show you. You're getting a little bit of the sneak peek before we actually show the whole music video. You can see how this was built, and you can see Buttercup's sketches and some of the things that really, I think, were beautiful to see the creation of it. So, I'm about to put like, oh, did something just happen?
You know, rotate it.
It
Yeah.
rotate. Oh, stupid rotate. Okay, wait, hold up. Real time, guys. Hold
Work it
up.
out.
Okay, going back. All right, react. Okay, here we go. So we're gonna watch together. Okay, so here we are. Right,
Ooh.
you guys can see. So again, I came to Buttercup and I was like, I want to have St. Louis Cathedral. What did you think about when you like was St. Louis Cathedral? And what
Oh,
song?
you're cutting up a little bit. Um,
Really?
you- yeah, yeah,
I'm here now.
yeah. 100%.
Okay, so I wanted to ask you, um, when I came to you and said I want St. Louis Cathedral, I wanted a post-apocalyptic St. Louis Cathedral,
Hmm.
and I want it to be present. First of all, how did you approach this? And also, too, what kind of software did you use to be able to depict this with all the details?
Hmm. So, like everything that you said is 100% the truth. The like the quarter, just that's just the culture of the quarter, right? The French Quarter. The like, you get a whole massive mix of all kinds of different magical things, and like people sleep on like I mean, New Orleans is a modern city, so there's like tons of like technologically interesting and fascinating things going on in the city, and so that it just struck a chord with me. The idea of like if New Orleans has a future at all, then it's going to be a high tech future, right? It's on the fringe of like Western civilization, if you want to call it that, and like I have an affinity for looking into the future and thinking about like what will a superhuman, a transhuman, a magical realism version of like black spaces, what would that look like? And so like just as soon as you said the idea, I immediately knew what I wanted it to look like. I knew that I wanted to have this like this historical monument, St. Louis Cathedral, and like the area around it on Chartres and like all the other places, the Louis with New Orleans in the background, the like skyline in the background, like to just have it be exactly like you said, like Blade Runner, like Mad Max. Like imagine like more infrastructure, imagine more holographic depictions of what it is that we already associate with that space. And so like that was just immediately I thought about that. And the software that I'm using is called Clip Studio Paint. It's the EX version, and it is it's the same program that I use to make my comic book. So I'm really familiar with it, and I really enjoy animating it.
Well, what's really cool about it, and that's why I got to this next image, is not only did you depict the church beautifully, by the way, but also the cobblestone. That's, if anyone knows, like the area between the garden and the church,
Mhm.
and having a being walking, and it just felt nostalgic for me. It felt
Mhm.
beautiful. It felt like real. And I get goosebumps about it because again I feel like we haven't really shown New Orleans in this really cool way, and it was really beautiful to see it depicted that way, especially with detailing. And I guess my question to you is, with something like this, with that software, is it hard to get detailing at this level, at this structure, animating something like this, or with that software is it easy? Because what I find is a lot of times, especially with music videos and animators, when we're developing concepts, for time purposes, right? And because of the length of things, detailing gets hard, so things get more and more vague with visuals. I find with you though, detailing is imperative, and I
Mhm.
wonder, is it based off your software, or is just a personal preference to make sure that whatever you do, movement, movement is a thing for you, detailing and structure is a thing for you?
I'm big about holism, a holistic approach and harmony. And so I mean, it's fortunate on your end that the thing that you're asking for is a space that's extremely symmetric, right? Like
Right.
if you're standing in the middle of that street in between the park and the church, like it's all symmetrical. Even though it's
Yeah.
cobblestone, you look one way, you look the other way, it's the same architecture on either side.
Yeah.
And like so you gave me a really easy place to work with because all I had to do was like draw one side of it in any given frame because so like I could just have it like flipped immediately. And so the
And
software actually is really conducive to allowing that.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Mm,
And so
yeah.
then for that, right? And
Hmm.
I guess my next, biggest thing was, okay, I'm giving this guy St. Louis Cathedral, we're talking about the beauty of it, but my song is about the like just hypnotizing and really
Yeah.
basically King Creole speaking to a group of humans to convert them to the level of where the level of regalness, the possibilities of what it's showing
Hmm.
them what it's going to be. When you heard this record, did you feel like, okay, this can make sense? Or were you like, I gotta figure out how to mash this? Or was it beautiful like marriage because you saw it perfectly? Because originally
Oh,
I gave you a whole different song. Originally I gave you a whole different record.
yeah. I was gonna say that like there's two tracks called titled Voodoo on the album, right? And initially you gave me the other one. I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna do this. But but it's funny because the album wasn't out yet. I hadn't heard any of the other tracks besides that one. And but we had a meeting and you started singing the line from the song, and that's what like cued me into like, oh, I've got the wrong track. But then I was like, ooh, wait, it's about this, like because like I've been working with the concept around Voodoo, the outerlude, uh, our outer mission, and I really love that track too. So I was like really getting into it. I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna make these ideas sync up with the theming. But then the moment that like you sang the line, I'm on. I'm on a mission to give you the vision. I was like, wait. You need to send me the actual track, the other track, because I think that's the one. And you were like, oh, okay, yeah, and sent it to me. And like like I had already done a lot of the concept work behind it because of how clear your vision for what you wanted this to be was, and it all just kind of like synced in immediately the moment that I heard the track. And like yeah, uh, like I really don't know how to explain
It
how
just worked.
like
It's clicked.
yeah, it just
'Cause
worked.
I
It
was
clicked. It
worried. I
clicked.
was worried. I didn't know because I in my mind, and I didn't know you had been in New Orleans, so I was worried that
Mm,
I'm giving Voodoo like Voodoo is the title. We're talking about
mm,
magic. We're talking about uh kind of almost not we're summoning, right? We're summoning,
mm-hmm,
we're putting spells and we're preaching and it's the idea of a priest or a preacher in front of this altar. This is the new version of that. In King Creole, instead of her being at an altar, she's basically being built, and her armor is coming on. That's her altar, and that's her her word, her delivering her sermon.
mm-hmm.
And I thought that was really cool. And as we go, I'm going to keep going because here comes my next favorite part that I want to speak to you about is what we talked about. I love this concept, and I told you that I wanted her to be, like similar to Ex Machina, where
Mm,
she's being built in real time as she's preaching, because I feel like no preacher is better than the other person, right? I feel like if
mm-hmm.
you are built with prophecy, if you are able to have the eye to be a seer, you are still you are still learning and growing. So I love the fact
Right.
I never wanted her to seem above anyone. So I thought it'd be really cool that she's even being built. She's even, as she's speaking about being better and greater, she herself is still being built in that process. So there's this relatability of understanding that we are all going to grow together. You took it to a whole nother level by bringing in the voodoo symbol, and I want to talk to you about why choosing this symbol, why putting this a part of the story.
Mm. Well, again, this is part of my heritage, my legacy too. My mom being from New Orleans, I've always felt a really strong connection to of place to New Orleans, um, and I'm a huge advocate for, if not like direct practitioner of African traditional religions in general. And you know, voodoo is like much maligned in Western, like let's say imagery media, because of the role that it played in the Haitian Revolution. But in reality, voodoo is just any old African traditional religion. It's the same as Yoruba religion. It's the same as the veneration of ancestors that goes on all throughout West and Northern Africa. So like in my mind, it's not. It's the
Oh, wow.
same thing as like drawing a cross. You know, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's multiple. Okay, so in voodoo we have these things like sigils,
Hmm.
like similar to what they have like in runes or like magic circles that they do. Like if you've ever seen the anime Full Metal Alchemist, when they
Yeah.
do the
Which
like
is my favorite?
the
Okay, go ahead.
yeah, oh, same. Brotherhood is one of my favorite anime of all time. But they have these like magical sigils that they do, and in voodoo they have the same things. It's sacred geometry, and there's multiple that appear in the music video, specifically of Zili Freda, who is the like voodoo version of Oshun, or the Virgin Mary.
Hmm.
There's one for Papa Legba, who is the like voodoo version of Eshua Legua from Yoruba traditional religion, and Ogu. Uh, I'm forgetting the French word for iron. Uh, but Ogu is the name of the deity, or Ogun in Yoruba traditional religion, and that's what this symbol is Ogun symbol, and Ogun is the deity of ironwork. He's similar to um, uh, like Hephaestus in Greek mythology,
Uh-huh.
and because um, um, King Creole is like putting on this armor, is like being the symbol using this armor. I thought that it was more than an appropriate symbol to use to like represent the like she is, you know, using this magic, this energy, this um, power that she's getting from the people and their love, and it's, you know, converting into this energy of Ogun to like shield her, to protect her, to like give her the tools to be able to show them the vision, you know. And that's the reason why I have the Veve. That's what the sigils are
Yeah.
called,
I
of
love it.
Ogun.
I love it because again, it's marriage, right? It's marriage is a,
Mhm.
and it's proving that religion is a man-made concept, that all these things together exist, right? With St. Louis Cathedral in the back, old Catholicism with
Mhm.
uh, uh, um, uh, religion or practices. I don't
Right, right, right.
practice
Traditions.
traditions.
Hmm.
And then also the element of sci-fi, right? The element of an actual robot,
Yeah,
tech a part of that space, and being the tech being guided by tradition and culture, which that's the best part to me, right? How
yeah.
culture can manipulate and take a hold of tech to supply this story. And that was one of the things that I thought was quite brilliant, and I really uh, took me back to just my old feelings that I felt when, you know, playing Ghost in the Shell, and the concept of machine again, but this is a whole nother
You're
level.
cutting out a little bit. My bad.
Can
So,
you hear me again? Can you hear?
testing one, two. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Is it
It
back?
sounds good.
Okay.
Sounds good now.
It brings me back to the old gaming of Final Fantasy and Ghost in the Shell, where, you know, the idea that Android can exist with culture, but it's never
Hmm.
been black, you know, and so to see it in this space
Right.
just gets me super excited. So then another thing that moved me again is the concept of her preaching. And
Mm.
I didn't want to show the real version of what she is because I think people need to catch it when it airs.
Yeah,
Because,
yeah, yeah.
but what I truly appreciated, because I did know that all of the other King Creoles that I the animations that I've dealt with, she's never really spoken. It's always been her quiet, and the scene is playing out. Here, I wanted her to actually sing the lyrics, and this is one of the biggest questions that I ask all animators, because I want to know, is it hella difficult to get that mouth moving to go with lyrics, or is it easy easier to deal with, because I noticed that even with animations with other music videos, not everybody utilizes that movement or software, because it seems, I know for me, when I animate, it takes a longer time. So I want to
Mhm.
ask you, was it a pain in the A that will happen, or was it cool and you were cool with it?
I personally think that I just have a particular talent for being able to do that. If I can, like, I'm not trying to gas myself up
A little
necessarily,
gas,
but like,
a little gas. That's okay. You should. If you got it,
but
you got it. It's cool.
uh, the truth is that like I'm autistic, and part of that is that it makes it really difficult for me to be able to make eye contact with people, and so like as a way of like letting people know that I'm still paying attention and like looking and listening to them, I like sometimes will like zoom in on their mouth and like look at their mouth movement, and so like I have like an a catalog of really subtle mouth movements in my head that I just like have no like problem getting access to in the process of animating. And like I use it in my sequential art too. Like I sort of like pick the moment or the frame during someone saying something that feels like it's the most impactful, and like but like I'm like going through like I'm like skimming through the entire dialogue in my head and like picking like, oh, I think that this is the point where they would make this specific facial expression, like using this specific mouth movement, and I like focus in on that. And so like yeah, I do think that it's really difficult, and it's likely more difficult for people who may not have my specific skill set. But for me, I really enjoy um, uh, like the subtle parts of the ways that people communicate. I like study them as a way of being able to make up for what sort of like social disability like maybe a product of me being autistic. So that's the answer
Wait,
to
let me
that
go.
one, I guess.
Now you dropped another, like, I knew you were artistic, but I did,
Mm,
I always feel like that's a comfort level if people want to talk about, but I think it's powerful
mm,
in the sense that I won't harp on it too long, but I do think my next question to that is, has animation saved you with your autism? Because I feel like to detail makes you a hell of a threat, like an incredible, like really, I'm serious. And when it makes sense to me now, you saying that, because I never asked you. I knew you were autistic because you have it on your
mm.
on your Twitter. Um, but it speaks to the detailing and the choices that you make. And I wanted to ask personally, like, has animation saved you, and because of that, makes you the threat that you are because of that level of attention to detail?
Well, I think I have a passion for it,
Yeah,
probably as a result of like that interest, right? My earliest exposure to anime, both Studio Ghibli and Sailor Moon, was
yeah,
like back when I was 7 or 8 or something like that.
huh?
My mom used to sell Tupperware, and like like she was born in New Orleans. She grew up, went to Harvard studying East Asian languages and cultures. And like when she became a housewife, she was like, "Oh, I want to start selling Tupperware, and I'm gonna corner this like Japanese market, right?" Like that was her
Love,
like mindset.
love
And so she like went to Japanese ladies' houses and like would speak Japanese with them and like sell them Tupperware. And like me and my siblings would like sit, in their living room watching
anime.
TV, and they always had anime exactly on the TV
Hmm.
as a little kid. So like they're like that being exposed to those animation techniques at that age meant that like when I started actually watching TV, because like it was like even before I was like really watching things like the Magic School Bus or Arthur or anything like that. I was like that young. When I started seeing those shows, I realized and could identify that like this is a different style of thing. This is
Yeah,
like they use different techniques to make this, different from how they make things like Sailor Moon or My Neighbor Totoro. And
right.
so like in watching those movies and shows back, I like could tell what like that there was a difference. So like you may remember later on in Kids WB, and like obviously Toonami, and like a lot of DC animated TV shows for superhero shows,
Hmm.
they outsourced a lot of that animation to East Asia, whether it be
Yeah,
Korea or Japan. And like when I saw those shows, I could tell, like I could tell that they were using those same techniques that they used in those shows that I watched when I was a little kid. And I was like, I want to understand what the difference is here between what these people are doing and what like Western animators are doing. And it wasn't until years and years later that I had access to that information because through the internet, as like people started revealing their animation techniques and secrets. But like, yeah, I knew that like I enjoyed looking at this particular sort of like frame rate, these sort of minimal movement differences, and like as an artist, as I started to like want to like think of myself as an artist, I guess I like also wanted to like, have access to those techniques. And so like, yeah, in a big way, I do think that if not animation outright, my fascination with style and aesthetic has been a huge saving grace for me in the face of social disability. Because like
I
I love, oh, go ahead.
I think it's a superpower, and I well, yeah, because I think people that live on the spectrum have a way of viewing, and seeing things that we just don't tap into. And I think that detailing is shown within your space, your work. That social, like even just the mouth. You're explaining the detailing of the mouth is speaking volumes. Um, okay, so going forward, because again, like we're not going to share all of this music video, because no. Okay, so again, the detailing here, I just love. I will consistently say it because I think there's something powerful about this, guys, and that in itself, like you've seen, is one of the reasons why I'm absolutely in love with Buttercup. Why
Why Buttercup?
why
Oh,
million
that's a
dollar question?
story.
$1 million.
That's a story.
Give me the story then, because I want people. This isn't just about me. You know what I mean? I'm so
Mhm.
excited about Black animators. I'm so excited about uplifting, and I want to do my part. And like I don't like it's cool that I do my own stuff, but like this, I rather this like to meet more and more people.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
Why
The
Buttercup?
back and forth. You know what? I'm gonna be real with you. The story itself is too lewd for social media, but
Do the PG,
but
the PG one. Do the PG 13.
there's no way to.
No.
It's baseline too lewd. But I can explain though that like so my given name is Stephen Michael McDowell, which is like
Mhm.
very Catholic. It's very
Yep.
like like if you heard that name, you would expect like some white dude with a beard
Why?
and like who's written multiple novels. Like it's the perfect name for like a novelist. And like I uh, I spent some time working in literary circles and like and writing poetry and stuff like that. And for that purpose, like that name was very useful. But even since college, I've been going by Buttercup. And like when someone first called me Buttercup, I like was like, that's so like gentle and tender and like a perfect reflection of like my like flowery personality, and like and it's not like threatening to my masculinity whatsoever. And I just like
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain it, but it just like suited me, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. You felt it.
And yeah, and so like since then, like since like 2008 2009, like everybody's just called me Buttercup. um
How
yeah.
old are you when you started? Like, what was the moment you were like, boom, career? Like, I'm gonna shift this from a hobby to a, oh, let's get this money real fast.
Actually, on YouTube, there is my very first animation ever is on YouTube somewhere.
Yeah.
It's
So
I don't know.
exposed. That's good.
I don't know if I would be able to link it. I don't know if I'll be able to link it. But like so, back in high school, I explained that like I used to work in literary circles. That's true about pretty much the arts entirely. I'm a musician. I sing. I act. I write like not just books and poetry, but also scripts. And I've like been a jack of all trades, Jack Jill of all trades. My entire life. I like my dad is also a preacher, so like I'm not
Whoa.
shy in front of in front of a crowd,
You're,
you know. And so, huh?
you're a PK?
Yeah, yeah, I am.
What? I never heard that either. Okay, go ahead. I didn't interrupt. That's okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, uh-huh. But so I've like always had like I've always been a storyteller, you know, like that's on like in a holistic way, and not super great at anything else, right? Like I'm like really good at writing, at acting, at singing, composing music, doing art, illustration. I'm a storyteller. So in high school, I was like, what am I gonna do with this skill set? Because it's not like being a financier. It's not being a business person. I like don't know how to convert this into money. And so the obvious conclusion was like, you should take all of those skills and put them in one place if you can at all possible, if at all possible. And so I got into TV production and like doing cinema. Um, and like developed a real passion for that all the way back when I was like 15, 16. I wanted to make movies. And I actually ended up going to the University of Southern California, which has like a really fantastic, or let's say really well endorsed in terms of finances, film school. And uh, funny thing though is that like after going there for a couple years, I just realized how exclusive and exclusionary those spaces were, and it turned me all the way off to like wanting to be a film director wholesale, right? Like
Right.
at some point in my past, like I was like, my name's Steven, I want to be like Steven Spielberg. I got to meet a bunch of like celebrities who like work in Hollywood and like wanted to emulate them, and then just like slowly I just like burnt out on the lack of representation. And but that didn't give me more skills, you know, like me feeling that way didn't give me more skills, so I still had to find a way to like use all of these things that I had developed and like had developed a passion for, and you know, yeah, convert that into capital. And so that's the reason. And it's funny though, because it wasn't until like maybe 2016, 2017 that I was like, okay, let me go back to my roots. Like I tried, you know, working in retail. I tried,
God, we God,
yeah, everybody has
God.
tried working in retail.
He wrote
Tried working in like literature. Wrote a few novels. I tried so many different things. I tried working in the sciences. That didn't work out. And I was just like, you know what? Let me just go back to my roots. Literally, figuratively, I fell in with a bunch of people who practice African traditions, and a bunch of them are like still bugging me, being like, "You should release a tarot deck. You should release a tarot deck." Like, you
yeah.
know, and they were like, "You would make a killing if you made a tarot deck." And I was like, "Oh, okay, all right." So like, this is viable, like as a way of like being an illustrator, being an animator, being a storyteller is a viable like way of living. And it wasn't until like that time in my life, like, you know, 5, 6 years ago, that I like realized like, oh, maybe I should and could, like, maybe I could and should be doing this.
Yeah,
And so I started taking it way more seriously.
you should by far.
Mm.
Got two more for you, and then we're gonna premiere this exclusive, exclusive. Um, um, how was it? Was working with Adult Swim the first time you ever got an opportunity to do that? And how was it?
Hmm. Oh, yeah, it was the first time I got an opportunity to do that. Thank you, Dawn.
No
Thank
shit.
you. But how was it? It was fantastic. It was um, it's an interesting thing, right? Because like I did an animation back in high school. I forgot to bring that back up. Like for my final project in TV production, rather than making a live action film, I did an animation, and it's somewhere on YouTube. If y'all want to look for it, go for it. Uh, it's called Legends of Orius, Orius. But there's so much time that I spent watching anime and like having this sort of perception that I was talking about of like being able to clock specific techniques versus others, like doing like looking at the behind the scenes for different animations, and like knowing that like, yeah, I have the ability theoretically to do something like this. I know how all the techniques work. I know how all the layering has to work. I know like what frames per second something needs to look to appear realistic. I just have never had the money thrown at me to do it. And Don was like, "Here, let me throw some money at you to do this." And I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah. Now I can like apply all this knowledge that I've just like been accumulating only in my head and like put it on screen." And so like, yeah, it was a fantastic opportunity to do that. And I just like I lived in that world for the couple months that I was working on it. And like I like yeah, it's one of the proudest accomplishments of my life making that Adult Swim tag. So I'm really happy. I'm really happy
I love to
I
give
got the
people money.
opportunity.
I love to give my people money. As soon as I'm like, yeah, got you. I want you to win. Okay,
Mhm.
so last question is, where can everyone find you? Because again, like I said, I'm grateful. I want to use my platforms to rise and uplift us, especially people that are not seen. So where can
Mhm.
the world get you? And, like, let us know.
So I'm everywhere on the internet under the handle at BTRCP. On Twitter specifically, it's BTRCP underscore, like one underscore. But on Instagram, on Facebook, on Artful, if y'all use that. Yeah, just look up BTRCP or look up my comic which I use the hashtag comic UMCOMIC, and like you should be able to find my stuff. And like I'm really excited to be here, and thanks for having me, though.
I love you, and I will stalk you all. You guys support him. Well, they, right? We're they.
Yeah,
Support
yeah,
them. Support them. Because it's important. It's so
yeah.
important to see more and more cultural representation and love. Even if you ain't watching, you ain't checking, you should be supporting because it's just important for us.
Yeah, actually, I actually want to say that like I like am aware, even as an Afro-Indigenous person, like I got light skin privilege. I've been educated. I just told y'all my entire pedigree just now, right? But the reason why I like want to make things that show women and femmes, dark skinned Black people like thriving is because I want to be able to transfer this energy that's been bestowed on me onto the rest of my kinfolk, right? Like that's what I want to see. I want to see African and Indigenous people thriving all throughout the world. So like, yes, feel free to give me attention, but know that I'm always going to give it right back.
Well, that's why that was one of the reasons why we had the discussion because you're right. You saying that is dope in itself. Expressing your understanding of being a light skinned person. But I also think like coming to and being like, I want a dark skinned girl, and they're like chocolatey. You can see it on this camera.
Mhm.
So I want to make sure every draw depicts that. So thank you for saying that's important. Colorism does exist in our space, and we need to, guys, without further ado, pew, 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 pew. I want to premiere this beautiful piece of art by Buttercup. Uh, they worked really hard for this project, so you guys super support. This is Voodoo. It is short, but it is incredible. The story is will make a question that relate, but please subscribe, be a part of this. Make sure that you not only give me love, but go to the Twitter, go to the Instagram, and be like, Buttercup, you killed it, and give love,
Oh God.
support. So we're about to do the countdown. Everybody say and give hearts and love to Buttercup. Tell them bye.
Oh.
This is the premiere off my album that is out now, Second Line Voodoo, the Intermission. Bye, Buttercup.